Bob Mould is an American singer, songwriter, and guitarist. He started his musical career in the punk band Hüsker Dü from 1979 to 1988. He had a stretch of being solo from 1988 to 1991, in which time he produced two solo albums. He was then in the band Sugar from 1992 to 1995, and then was solo again since then, which is now quite a long time, and he has released 13 more solo albums since then. Hi, my name's Dan. So this was Bob Mould's first solo album, and it's my first encounter with him as a solo artist. So I have come across, I wouldn't say I recognise his name before this, but I have come across his two bands, Hüsker Dü and Sugar, and I've heard some of their stuff. Um, so definitely on this album, the first track is my favourite track, but unfortunately, it's not indicative of the rest of the album. So the first track is a guitar instrumental with, I think, a couple of guitars and a shaker going on, and the main kind of upfront guitar has got a kind of nice picking, arpeggiated-ish riff, which is in a kind of South African pop guitar sound, a nice clean sound, and actually the riff feels a little bit like bits of the South African music there. The rest of it is totally different, and it's mostly alt rock of a more normal kind, certainly. So there's quite a bit of acoustic guitar, but there's electric guitar as well, which tends to be not particularly overdriven. The acoustic guitar, I think, is mostly 12 string. And predominantly, this reminds me quite a lot of REM. So most of the songs, when they start, sound like they could be an REM track, except the kind of the standard of production and recording isn't as high as you'd expect from REM. His voice is also kind of REM as well. So Michael Stipe has a quite a distinctive voice. That's the guy from REM, in case you didn't know. And if you can draw a line from say normal voice here to Michael Stipe here, then Bob Mould is out here, and it's kind of the same but double. And it's kind of hard to describe. I always find it hard to describe voices, but it's Bob's got quite a resonant voice. I wouldn't say nasal. I don't think it's the right kind of resonance to it to describe it as nasal, but it's got this kind of resonant qualities to it. It's actually, I found, quite hard to hear the words, but there is quite a bit of harmonies going on. The singing's all right. At times, the whole thing felt a bit like Heartland rock, so kind of shades of Bruce Springsteen. There is a cello in here, but I didn't particularly notice it, so I couldn't say where it was. And then occasionally, I think it somehow sounds Scottish, and I think partly that's the style of the music. Why that's particularly Scottish, I don't know. But I think also because in the harmonies, it often uses fifths, which are like a na na, and thirds are more commonly used in harmonies, so it gives it an open harmony sound that is somewhat reminiscent of Scottish folk, or use of bagpipes and things like that. Just a tiny bit. Um, so the last track, which is Whichever Way the Wind Blows, is heavier than the other tracks. It's more kind of hard rock, and it's got quite a lot of overdriven guitar, including what I'd call noise elements, particularly towards the end, where it sounds more like he's making noises than making music in it, and it's quite aggressive and raucous. So overall, what did I think? Well, to be honest, I'm afraid it mostly left me cold. I did like the first track. I wasn't particularly bothered by the last track, and I wasn't particularly bothered by most of the tracks in between. I get that maybe at the time it was quite radical. So I've been comparing to REM, but the kind of mainstream REM time was a little bit after that, I think, if I've got this right. And so maybe this was kind of the precursor to alt rock of that style. So maybe it was significant. Maybe it is as an album, but as a standalone listen, I didn't kind of really find it all that engaging, I'm afraid. So I didn't rate it that highly. So So at this point, as always, I'd love to invite you to tell me what you think of this album. So especially if you're more invested in it than I am and you like it more than I do, I always like getting, you know, people adding to the conversation and giving their own perspectives. And often that's where I've missed stuff, putting, what the qualities are that you like about something in. Please do. It's always very interesting to read. And that's it from me for now.